Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be me talking you through my watercolour process and how I paint portrait studies. Today I'm using an image from Rachel Georgina on Instagram for my reference photo, which I will leave a link to her Instagram in the description below. I'm not using a regular sketchbook in this video, but using one that has paper specifically for watercolour paint. The sketchbook I'm using is the Moleskine A5 watercolour journal. I typically start my watercolour paintings by lightly sketching out the subject in a red erasable coloured pencil. The pencil I'm using is the Derwent Start Colouring Blendable coloured pencil in the colour Crimson. I tend to use a red pinkish colour, especially when painting portraits, as the pencil markings that I make kind of melt into the watercolour paint when applying layers, whereas if you were to use a normal graphite pencil, the sketch lines would show through the watercolour and they are not erasable once the paint has dried over the top. It is possible to use a normal pencil, however you have to make sure that you use an extremely light hand and then erase the pencil lines until you can barely see them before starting to paint. Once I have completed the sketch, I then begin to mix my base skin tone colour with my watercolour paints. The paints I like to use at the moment are the Royal and Langnickel Essential watercolour paints, as they're affordable and they're great quality. How I mix my colours depends on what skin tone I am painting, but for this particular study I mixed a combination of yellow ochre, rose and gamboge. I then mixed this with a bit of white watercolour to make a more pastel colour. If you'd like me to do a more in-depth video on how to mix skin tone colours, then please let me know in the comments below. When working with watercolour paints, it's important to work in layers and to remember to let the previous layer dry before adding the next. Once I place down my base skin tone colour and let it dry, I then add the same colour again, but more pigmented and less water. This is to add shadows to the skin. I then begin to add different colours which you wouldn't normally think you would see in skin tones, such as blue and green. However, this is completely normal as your skin is actually made up of lots of different colours, and if you incorporate those colours into your painting, it will help it feel more realistic. In this particular painting, I used a cool blue colour to go over the shaded layer. This is so that it will contrast the warm orange of the skin tone. And if you look at the reference photo that I'm using, then you can see that there are also some cool tone greens in the shaded area as well. Remember to use these colours sparingly, otherwise it will look like a rainbow, unless that's what you're going for. I just then keep following these steps and repeating this process, layer after layer, until I'm happy with the skin tone. I usually don't add too much detail at this point, and I tend to use a larger brush to stop myself from going overboard. When it comes to painting hair, I usually start with the very lightest colour that I can see, which is normally the highlights. For example, if I were to paint brown hair, I would probably block out the hair shape using a warm yellow. In black hair, it tends to be a blue colour. So for this particular painting, I blocked the hair shape using a very watered down blue that I use for the shading. This then allows me to work on top of that colour and building up layers with increasingly darker shades until I've reached a pure black, making sure that I leave the highlight areas so that the blue shows through. Once I've completed as much as I can with the watercolour paint, I then go in and add detail with the coloured pencils. I will first begin shading the skin tone again with oranges, browns, blues and greens, which will make the skin tone more even and realistic. I will then go in and do the same to the hair, making sure that the blue highlight stands out. And then I will tweak any other part of the painting that I feel needs a bit of work. That's the beauty of using colour pencils over the top of watercolour. It can help blend everything together. I will then go in and add my final details such as eyelashes, pupils, lips and any strong lines in the body. I also like to outline the nose and the chin, as it can get lost underneath all of the watercolour. Once I have finished with the coloured pencils, I then like to tidy up the edges by softly outlining the painting with a brownish pencil. And that's my complete portrait watercolour painting process. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you on the next one. Bye!